Hey guys, how are you? So the debates happened last night. I will give you my quick opinion, show you my favorite reaction from the unhinged left, and then we'll go and debunk a bunch of Kamala Harris lies because it was full of mistruths. And then I'll show you some of my favorite reactions off Twitter, and we'll talk about that, and then that is all for this video. My overall feeling of the entire debate. I loved Mike Pence in this debate. I absolutely loved him. I had this sneaking feeling that he's like this undercover little like lion or I don't know what you want to call him, but I thought his performance was absolutely brilliant. He was a gentleman. He was strong and stern yet calm at the same time. He argued with facts and logic and not emotion. He dominated, and he did cut off when he needed to cut off, and I just believe, again, he completely dominated that stage. He stole the show. He owned that entire debate, and the truth was 100% on his side. Kamala Harris, on the other hand, it was clear that she was unprepared. She had the same exact tired liberal fake news media talking points that have been debunked over and over and over again. She played the race card. She played into the coronavirus, played into the taxes as exactly I thought she would, not to mention just the overall demeanor the entire time throughout the debate. She came across as, she has this weird thing where she laughs too much. I don't know. I see her doing it all the time. I don't know if that's a nervous thing but it comes across as odd and misplaced and disingenuous. And the whole time every time Mike Pence would talk, she would make faces, and she just came across as bitter and angry and smug. And she did a lot of these little tricks where she would be like, and one of them, it went viral. It was this moment where she was like, "Excuse me, Mr. President, I was talking," and that went viral, and everyone's like, "Oh, women, hear us roar," or whatever. But there were a few more times within the debate where she would use these weird like fillers. She would be like, "Yeah, I was talking. Let me continue to talk." And to me, that was just evidence that she was unprepared. It was sort of like a filler buying time because she didn't know where to go. She was completely lost. And then while she was talking, just all her body language to me just read deception. When she was talking, her eyes would divert a lot, which shows that you don't have a lot of confidence in what you were saying. So there's that. But and Mike Pence, it was such a brilliant. Now, a lot of the criticism of President Trump is that he's not very presidential, he's not very PC, he comes across as brash, which is why some people love him, but why a lot of people criticize him. That's one of the reasons why he is such a polarizing figure, and Mike Pence was such a beautiful compliment to that. His performance was an absolute beautiful compliment to that. He was a gentleman. He was very presidential, very politically correct, but at the same time, driving home his point, being stern and sticking to the facts. I loved it. I thought it was great. He knocked it out of the park. Now, I want to show you one of my favorite unhinged reactions from the debate, and this person even shocked MS-13 DNC. So let's go to this clip and then we'll talk.
I think it's ever a good sign when a fly lands on your head for 2 minutes. You know, that's a sign all through history of sin, and historically, biblically, maybe you wouldn't normally say this after, it's only safe to say this, after midnight, but, you know, a fly, he who commands the fly has always been seen historically as the mark of the devil. So
I'm not Steve,
relevant, having the fly
now as a journalist, now I have to ask for the record, are you joking? Because the fly could have landed on anyone.
Yes, but it didn't. It landed on Mike Pence.
That is Trump derangement syndrome in all its glory. To be fair, I will say, Joe Biden 1, Fly 2, Kamala Harris 3. And I will say, I actually think the moderator did a good job. I mean, some of her questions did appear to be biased, but she did such a better job than Chris Wallace. I felt like it was a lot more fair, and she did, even when Mike Pence cut her off a few times, she did let him go. And I actually looked at the time that each were talking. Some people are saying that they talked for an even amount of time. Some people were saying that Kamala Harris had 3 more minutes. But to me, as far as what we've been seeing recently, although I do feel like some of the questions were a bit biased, I was overall like pretty happy with how the moderator did. But let me know your thoughts on that exactly. I'd be curious to know what you think. So let's go in and debunk Flygate 2020. Going back to that. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Okay, so let's go back into some of the lies that Kamala Harris told. The first thing was the whole fracking thing, and I thought Pence did a really good job at really driving this home. Kamala Harris, even on her Twitter today, is saying, I'm not going to ban fracking. I would never ban fracking. Well, her and Joe Biden have been they are on camera several times saying that they both will ban fracking, that they are for banning fracking. And this is really worrisome, and Kamala Harris has done this throughout her whole career. She flip-flops, and she will say or do whatever she thinks she needs to say or do to get elected or to move her political career. She doesn't seem to have any strong roots. I don't know what her core beliefs are, because it sort of goes all over the place. So one of the things they talked about was the coronavirus. Again, they're blaming Donald Trump for 210,000 deaths. And this is just another example of politicizing a tragedy. And that is what they're doing. The same politicians that are criticizing Trump right now, and I'll name a few off my head: Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, de Blasio, Cuomo. The same ones that are criticizing Trump for not taking it seriously now are the same ones that called him xenophobic, a dictator, a racist, for putting the ban on China back in January. You had Bill de Blasio telling people to go out and eat in New York City, to go to shows, don't stay home, don't be scared. You had Nancy Pelosi in Chinatown telling everyone, come on down to Chinatown for the festival. There's nothing to be afraid of. So this is a clear example of whatever Trump does, we need to go the other way. We can't agree with him. This has been debunked. And look at a lot of these deaths. A lot of these deaths happen in Democratic-run areas. And I think it was up to 40% of the deaths are nursing home-related deaths. And those were direct orders from the Democratic governors in those states to force nursing homes to take infected patients rather than allowing them to stay in the hospitals. So there's that. They then talked about, again, it's like every little trap, they just eat it up. They then talked about Donald Trump's taxes and that he's millions of dollars in debt. The tax thing has been debunked many times, completely legal. And then the debt. When you are someone like Donald Trump, when you have a lot of investments, a lot of properties, businesses, it is pretty normal for you to have a huge debt. And a lot of times that debt will end up paying itself off and more. But that is sort of the consequence of being a successful businessman, entrepreneur, someone that makes investments, someone that owns properties. Typically, those people take bigger risks, and that is why they get such greater rewards. So that's why you do that. And then taxing. I love how Pence drove this home, because he is absolutely right. Taxes. They talked about taxes. We're not going to raise your taxes. We're not going to raise your taxes. Yes, they absolutely will raise your taxes. And Kamala Harris tried to make the point, well, we're only going to raise taxes on people that make over $400,000 a year and corporations. They didn't put that in there. But that is actually sort of true. Also not. One of the very first things they want to do when they get into office is repeal Trump's tax plan, repeal his tax cuts. His tax cuts have put thousands of dollars every year in the hands of millions of households in America. So just by repealing Trump's tax plans, yes, you will be raising taxes, because that plan did major tax cuts all across America. My parents saw it. I saw it. A lot of people saw it. So that was a lie. She then tried to bring up health care and say that Trump was not going to protect pre-existing conditions. Again, this is something that has been debunked time and time and time again by President Trump. He has promised everyone, and it's in his plan, he will protect pre-existing conditions. He's also working very hard to lower the cost of prescription drugs. And another thing, Kamala Harris is a fan of universal health care. That's going to raise taxes. So again, lying about the taxes. And then one of my favorite things was the Paris Climate Accord. Donald Trump has been called a climate change denier because one of the main reasons is because he pulled out of the climate accord. America, since pulling out of the climate accord, has lowered its emissions more than anyone actually in the climate accord. So everyone in the climate accord, their emissions have either gone up or they have lowered them at a much lower rate than the US of A. So that was a wonderful point. I'm so happy that Mike Pence really drove that home. Another thing, Kamala Harris brought up Charlottesville several times. This was also brought up in the presidential debate by Chris Wallace, the moderator. She's bringing up Charlottesville. This has been debunked. I don't know how many times we did it on this channel. I've seen it on tons of other conservative channels and news networks. When you play the full speech, you see that that was a lie. Trump didn't say there were good people on both sides talking about white supremacists. In that same speech, he was talking about the regular people that were there to debate the statue. He wasn't talking about the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, or Antifa. He condemned those people several times in the same exact speech, condemned racism, and had a speech of unity. This is completely false, and Kamala Harris brought up Charlottesville several times during this debate. She even went so far as to say that when Joe Biden, by the way, Joe Biden, whom she called a racist in the primary debate, keep that in mind, is now saying that Joe Biden wanted to run for the president when Charlottesville happened. That's what inspired him to run for the president. So she basically admitted that the entire campaign is based on a lie, because that has been debunked I don't know how many times. And do you honestly think that's when Joe Biden decided to run for president? Honestly, do you even think Joe Biden decided to run? I don't even know if Joe Biden knows he's running for the president. Okay, so let's go through something else. Oh, military. She brought up the military. Trump calling them suckers and losers. That has also been debunked for people who were said to be there when he said this. Another lie. That has been debunked. I don't know how many times. Is there anything else? I'm looking at my notes. I think that's most of what I wanted to say. Again, Mike Pence did such a great job. I was so happy with how he performed. Let me know what you guys think. Is there anything I left out that really stuck out to you during this whole debate? Before I finish, let's look at a few reactions on Twitter, because this is just lovely. Joy Reid says, "Dear men, stop interrupting and talking over women. It's disrespectful, and eventually you're going to catch the wrong one, as Mike Pence did tonight with Kamala Harris, who easily won tonight's debate. Good night and be blessed." And then here's Mark Ruffalo, who also starred in our lovely naked celebrity video that we talked about yesterday. He weighed in, so let's see what he had to say. "I'm going over it all in my head. The way Mike Pence constantly interrupted and spoke over Kamala Harris was the prime example of white male supremacy and its common dismissal and disrespect for women." As a woman, let me just talk about that for a second. First of all, Mike Pence was interrupting her because she was outright lying and doing a disservice to the American people. We just debunked everything, and I would provide receipts, but we've already gone through all of this on this channel several times. Not only can you debunk it, you can pull up video footage in a second to debunk all of these things that Kamala Harris is saying. And I find it incredibly offensive that as women and male feminists, that we want women to be treated as equals, yet we're acting like they're toddlers, that we're toddlers that need our hand held, when we actually are treated as equal. Mike Pence interrupting her was him treating her as an equal debater. That's what you do in debate. You debate ideas. And I am a woman. I am 5'1". I weigh 100 pounds. I sound like a chipmunk. And let me tell you, I debate men. I cut them off all the time. I don't need you to spoon feed me. I don't need you to treat me any differently. I don't need you to coddle me. I want you to come with your best argument and I will give you mine. And I'm confident because I know that I have truth and facts on my side. Again, I cut men off all the time. That's BS. But anyway, I want to look at what my Matt Walsh said. If you don't know who Matt Walsh is, he is a conservative commentator on the Daily Wire. I think he's a newer commentator. I'm a huge fan of his, and I believe he was being sarcastic in this, but let's read what he said. During the debate last night, my 6-year-old daughter turned to me in tears and said, "Daddy, that rude, sexist man keeps interrupting Senator Harris. This must be what misogyny looks like." I don't know how to respond. We hugged each other and cried. Beautiful. So you can see why I like Matt Walsh. That was pretty funny. And one more point I forgot to make, or something that Mike Pence did last night that I thought was great. He had several just mic drop moments in this debate. I'm so impressed by him. A lot of respect for him. But he drove home the same point that Tulsi Gabbard did in the primary debates when she basically shut down Kamala Harris, and that basically ended Kamala Harris's chance for becoming the presidential nominee. He talked about, we have all this talk about racial justice, racial equality, prison reform, police reform, criminal justice reform. Well, when Kamala Harris was a prosecutor here in California, she locked away a disproportionate amount of black men and for nonviolent marijuana charges. And so this is another example of, I think Kamala Harris is just one of those corrupt people that all she wants is power. She wants to get ahead. And this is another example. She will go with whatever she needs to go with that might get her ahead instead of having a solid, strong moral platform. And we saw this too with Joe Biden and those primary debates, the ones she did so terrible in. She basically accused him of being racist, and now she's his running mate, saying that he decided to run after Charlottesville. That's what inspired him to run for the presidency. But that being said, let's go into, this is my favorite response that I saw of this debate by one of my favorite people. This is Kimberly Klacik. She's running for Congress as a Republican in Baltimore. And she says, Democrats wanted Biden to pick a woman of color. He did. We are witnessing the reason you don't choose someone based on gender or race. This is excruciating to watch. Harris is unprepared. I 100% completely agree. This is the result. We all know why Kamala Harris was chosen, and this is why identity politics and things of that nature, and when you focus on anything other than the content of someone's character or their ability to do the job or their history, this is what you get. And it's really sad for this country and for the future, and I hope people are becoming aware of this. But it's one of those things, you have several reactions. People that are probably a lot more low informed or super radical liberals, or people that are just so blinded by their hate for Donald Trump probably think that Kamala Harris just nailed it out of the park. I see it all over liberal media today. But anyone who is rational, has a little common sense, and that knows what's going on, Mike Pence just basically had it. So let me know what you think. Do you agree? Is there anything that stuck out to you during this whole debate that I didn't cover that you wanted to talk about? Thank you guys. Let me know.